A whole lot goes into provisioning choices: personal taste, budget, availability, storage space, and more. But have you considered the role that your water tankage plays in your provisioning choices? Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and on this episode of the Boat Galley podcast, I'm sharing a few things that Carolyn Sherlock has pointed out, and I totally agree with her, that you need to consider about water use and availability when choosing which provisions to bring and keep on the boat. Seems like a little bit of a strange combination, but it is really, really important to think about. But first, a little bit about today's partnership. The Boat Galley is thrilled to partner with the Salty Dog Sailing Association, an educational and charitable organization that helps sailors realize their long-distance cruising dreams. Salty Dog's volunteers are veteran sailors, guiding newbies to independent decision-making and offshore confidence. SDSA members have access to valuable education and great discounts on products and services provided by their sponsors. Salty Dog Sailing Association. Sailors helping sailors. Visit saltydogsailing.org to learn more. That's SALTYDAWG sailing.org. Provisioning. All kinds of things to think about when you're provisioning. Sometimes it's really hard to give tips because there isn't a general rule of what foods are best. Because, as you've heard me say before, almost every question, the answer starts with, it depends. And each boat's water situation will determine around water what works for them. Basically, how much water you have and how long it has to last, it's got a huge effect on what other provisions might suit you best. For example, if you're out for a few days with good tankage for the number of people aboard, you can use more foods that need water added. They'll typically be lighter and take less space than no water needed varieties. For instance, dried beans versus canned beans. The same is true in terms of the equation of how much water you need to carry with you in provisions as opposed to being able to add later. If you have a water maker or make frequent stops where you can fill the tanks. However, if you are trying to make your tank supply last as long as possible, you might be better off using water-included provisions. The space savings of being able to use dry versions of whatever are considerable. Again, think about the dried beans aspect. But you really do have to think about the water supply. And while the dry versions usually weigh less, and maybe a consideration when you're thinking about how you actually get them from the grocery store to the boat, the space taken up by extra tankage on the boat often equals out any weight savings. Dave and Carolyn and their dog Paz found when they were cruising, after lots and lots of years, they found that they used about 7 gallons of fresh water a day during the tropical summer. On us, on Calypso, since we've had a water maker, we're much more generous with our water usage and find we probably do about the same. We use it for drinking, cooking, dishes. We have showers every day and rinses after swimming, even in the middle of things. There are lots of people with bigger crews with really large water makers who will use 40 gallons a day or more of water. Once you figure out where you comfortably fit on the spectrum of water usage, you can plan your provisions accordingly. As some examples, are you thinking about cans and bottles of soft drinks? Or are you talking about powdered mixes and a water filter so the tank water tastes good? Are you thinking about boxes and cans of broth? Or are you looking solidly at bouillon cubes or the jars of better than bouillon? As I've mentioned a couple times, beans is a big thing for us on board Calypso. Canned beans or dried beans. Sometimes the water needed, though, isn't exactly what you're dealing with for long-term provisions, but it's the other stuff. Are you finding a place where you have fresh corn and you want to boil corn on the cob? Hint, steaming it actually works awesomely, uses much less water, and it tastes fantastic. You might want to wash a roast pan. Careful planning can limit the extra needed Like if you boil corn on the cob, you can then use the water from that to soak the roasting pan. But if you know that your water supply is going to be limited, you do have to take it into consideration. Just as a side note, this does not by any way mean that you need to have a water maker. You definitely don't. Carolyn's got a link to that in her blog post about this. I've written about that and why our choice is to have a water maker and what had us tip that the first time. And hint, it was because somebody gave us a water maker. You don't have to have huge water tanks. You don't have to make frequent stops to fill the tanks. Maybe. But if you are new to cooking and living on a boat, the water supply is something that you have to consider when planning meals and purchasing supplies. With time, it will become automatic as you get a feel for how long your onboard supply will last under various conditions, but that is something that is pretty different than living in a house where you're used to just having water at your disposal all the time. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you, and we get to share our favorite provisions, whether we've needed to take water into account on the provisioning side or on the supply side. Because regardless, we will be able to toast to our incredible good fortune at being able to share this amazing lifestyle. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We just love that we have this lovely community of people helping each other as we all work to make boat life better. Have the most spectacular week.